My name is Amanda McDonald, and I'm the LSU Discover Librarian. You should have already watched the Getting Started video, and this should be the second one, Design Tips and Tricks. Again, I'm going to do my best to make this quick and easy so that you know simply what you need to do when you're setting up your poster. The first thing you want to think about are font sizes. The text should be visible from 6 feet away. This means that you want to have your title between 80 and 96 point font, your headings at 32 to 36, and the body text at 22 to 28. This is the range that the CXC on campus recommends if you go to their poster sessions. I would say that if you get to a situation where you realize your body text is like 15 point font, that you should really stop and think, what do I need in this area and what can I cut? If you have 15 point font, I promise you it is not large enough. I know you can see it on your computer and you think, oh, well, when this is blown up, it's going to be easy to read. And it's just not the case. If you're using a font that tiny, you've got too much text and it's going to be too difficult for viewers to read. The next thing you want to think about is the scale of your font. Using the recommended font sizes, you want to scale from your title to your headings to your body text. What that means is you want the sizes all to kind of gradually scale down in a consistent manner. So if you're on the larger end of the scale at 96 point font, then your headings are going to be 36 and your body text is going to be 28. If you're on the smaller end of that scale, your title is going to be 80. Your headings are going to be 32 and your body text is going to be 22. Again, you probably don't want to get any smaller than that, and if at all possible, try to be on that larger end. In terms of consistency, remember to keep your headings in the same font, in the same style and size. All your body text should be the same. A common error in consistency that I see are students who have maybe like one section. That's a little bit too long. So they think, well, if I change the font in this one section down one size, no one's going to notice the difference. And you look at it on your computer and it looks about the same. But in this case, when you blow it up on a poster, it becomes very, very obvious. If you're at a place where one section is too big, I would say cut text, or you have to make all the text consistent. But again, you don't want it to be smaller than 22, so really think carefully about what text you need. In terms of font style, for titles, you want a non-serif. And for headings, you want a non-serif. So what that means is you're thinking about a font, something like an Arial font. Arial is non-serif. If you're thinking about serif for the body, which is recommended, that's going to be the traditional Times New Roman font or another serif font that you like. You can play around with fonts, but just make sure that what you select is professional. And you don't have to take this non-serif-serif dynamic. It's just something that we recommend. So it does depend on you and your own personal style and what you like. But don't try something that's like a cursive or something that looks like it has almost like a special design to it. You really want something that's going to be easy to read, so be mindful of that when you select a font. In terms of color, you want to think about complementary colors when you're playing with design. Complementary colors are like purple and gold or orange and blue. But you want to make sure that the reason why we're doing complementary colors is so that you don't have a background and then a text where you actually can't read the font because the colors are too close or they don't bounce off of each other. So look in your template. That background is a pale, pale gray. The title text is black. Those two things are, they complement one another in terms of one being very, very light and one being very, very dark. There's not a lot of color there because we are grayscale, but it does work in terms of visibility. For background, I would recommend you not going too dark. The template that we have is purposefully bland, so it kind of is meant for you to play it up. But in terms of concept, those colors make a lot of sense. Again, that light gray is a pastel gray. The black font works. The white text boxes do stand out just enough, and the black text in the text boxes. So that color scheme does work, but you certainly can play with color if you want to play with other pastels. Just again, make sure that there is that complementary color going on between your font and your background. In terms of content, if there is a rubric for judging for your class or for the conference, make sure that you include all the required sections. If they are giving awards for the conference away and they do have a rubric and you skip a section, you're probably not going to get an award. So really be mindful of what sections you have. In terms of word count, you want about 800. That's what Colin Purrington recommends. If there are too many words in your poster, it can be overwhelming, it can be crowded. Remember that you want your viewers to come up and they should be able to glance at it. They might be talking to colleagues, they might be talking to you, so there might even be a crowd around your poster, so you want to make sure that what they're looking at, that they can absorb it easily. So really think about what it is that you're highlighting. And make sure that you're prepared for people to ask you questions if you're at an event. In terms of body text, feel free to include bulleted lists instead of full body paragraphs because this will make, again, reading much easier. Again, it could be a crowd of people at your poster. If you've got those full body paragraphs, it really does work nicely. In terms of organization, the easiest tip that I can recommend is look at a scholarly journal article in your field. How they organize the content in the sections of the article should mirror how you organize a poster in that field. Think about the reading order. Remember that we read left to right and top to bottom on posters. So your section should be in order in that way in following the order in the journal article, meaning that the top left paragraph on your poster should be an introduction because usually an introduction is first. So what I want to do is I want us to start practicing with that template that we downloaded. I want us to open the Save template. I want us to make sure that we know how to adjust the font sizes on the scale. I want us to check the fonts, make sure that we have non-serifs for titles and headings and serifs for body. And I want us to look how we actually consider a pastel, and then I want us to save. So I'm going to go ahead and exit this slide. I'm going to open the presentation that I have here. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to look at the title. Okay, so highlight that text. This is 110, that's quite large. We're going to go down to that 96 that we recommended. Perfect. And then we look at that font style, and it is Calibri. Calibri is fine. You could do Arial if you wanted, but Calibri also works as non-serif, so that's just as well. So now let's kind of maybe make this slightly larger so we can see what we're working with. Okay, this introduction is also Calibri font, which means it's consistent to the title, which is excellent. It's at 48. We recommended if we had 96 for the top one that we had 36 for this. So now we've got it at 36. Remember that if I'm changing this one, I want to change each heading in here at the same time. Lastly, I'm going to look at the body text. I'm going to, highlight the body text. If I could use my trackpad. There we go. They have that at Times New Roman, so that is a serif font, excellent, and they already have it at 28. So the font sizes for this are excellent, and they are scalable based on the PowerPoint scale that we gave earlier in this presentation. So the last thing that we want to think about now is we want to think about how to format that background. So we can click on Format, and we can select Slide Background. And here we can do a couple of things. We can look at gradients. So if we wanted to actually change the gradient from, actually I want to cancel this really quickly. I've got the box selected, so that's not exactly what I want. I want to select the whole slide. There we go. I'm going to go back to Format and go back to Slide Background. Okay, so if we want to change the color, the automatic color is set, but you could go, right now it's in grayscale, you could change the color to something. There's more colors here. Whatever you felt pretty. Remember, we want probably a pastel or a light colored background, not something dark. I was mentioning earlier they have gradients, picture, texture, patterns. I would say steer clear of textures unless you've got, I mean, I kind of want to say steer clear anyway, but we don't have any boxes around our title, around our name, around our email addresses. We don't have any of that information in boxes. So if we've got a strong texture in the background, it's going to make reading very difficult. And again, it's going to be distracting. So I would say my best recommendation would be, after you switch all of these sizes for consistency and get a light color in the background, I would maybe play with content and then come back and really think about design at that point and what you want to do. But anytime that you've got something that's a little bit busy, it could make reading difficult. The last thing I want to mention is, if you do have images in your slide, make sure this literature cited is if you're quoting things, but if you are pulling images that are not your own, make sure you cite them. My best recommendation is, when you're thinking about graphs, when you're thinking about charts, and when you're thinking about images, use your own images so you don't have to worry about that, because then if you're not actually quoting in your poster, you might not need this section. But again, it depends on your research, but anything that you're using, make sure you're citing. And by having a literature cited section, it does help people who are viewing your poster see how your research fits into a larger body of literature. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Best of luck!